Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Ray Esports Club Racing League. This is round number 5 for group number 1, coming to you tonight from Laguna Seca. My name is Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall we have Joshua Wilkie. We're heading across the country to Monterey, California to continue on this season, where first up, as always, we've got the Mazdas. And at a track like this, I think tonight is going to be a true game of survival. So to pass this off to you, Charles, I gotta wonder, heading into this race, which I think may be the Hunger Games, are some of these drivers going to be taking shelter, or are they going to be swinging for the fences?
Oh, well, you know, as always, when we're dealing with the Mazdas, may the odds always be in your favor, I think is the term that's used. And yeah, no, it's a great racetrack. Obviously, lots and lots of usage because it's one of the free tracks. It's one of the first ones that everybody gets to participate with, and obviously with the Mazdas being one of the free cars, you know, this combination probably gets used quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to a good race. Obviously, there's a couple of spots that we're gonna have to talk about as the race goes forward, and you know, they'll be pretty easily identifiable by the carnage that happens there. So looking forward to a good race though, and let's have some fun tonight.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun in the two races that we've got tonight. Mazda Mania, of course, being the first one, 30 minutes in the MX-5s and the Spec Miata race cars, and then we've got a 40-minute long race for the TCRs to look forward to later on this evening. But currently in the midst of this qualifying session right now, these drivers getting their first lap times on the board. That's a newcomer to the series, Lincoln Fox, jumping up to the provisional pole to 136.756 as a very good lap time for that driver. Let's see if that time is going to stick between now and the end of the session. These drivers running in this solo 10-minute long session. They have 4 laps to get the job done around this 2.25 mile 11-turn road course, and a historic one in the world of motorsports at that. We've been following Chuck Labano in the number 7 Frito Sport car throughout this lap. He's your current provisional pole sitter in the Spec Miata category, so let's see if he will be able to hold on to that class pole between now and the end of this session. Already halfway through this session right now, with drivers staying some more lap times on the board, notably Miles Crabb jumping up in front of Fox. The gap between those two being practically nothing though. But Miles Crabb, we've covered him a lot in the past in the weekend, not the Weekend Warriors, the Ray Esports world here, Charles. Miles Crabb, always a very fast driver, and he certainly proved that all season long.
Yeah, he really is. He's very, very quick, and it doesn't really matter what car he's in. Either the Mazda, the Spec Racer, Formula V's. He's always up near the front unless he gets into trouble, which has been him a couple of times this season already. So yeah, not unexpected that he's on top of the leaderboard at this point.
At this point in time, we're awaiting some more drivers to set some lap times on the board. Let's see if Miles Crabb will be able to hold on to that provisional overall pole. A friendly reminder to folks tuning into this series for the first time. Yes, we do have 2 different Mazdas. There are 2 different Mazdas on the iRacing platform. The old Spec Miata car, which at this point is part of legacy content on the iRacing platform, and the often used MX-5 Cup car. The MX-5s, of course, being marked out in green in our fantastic overlays here on SMB tonight, with the Spec Miata competitors running in red. So that's how things are looking at the present moment. Some more drivers staying some times on the board. Miles Crabb, though, sawing at the wheel, coming out of the final corner of turn at number 11, one of the most important corners around this racetrack because it leads on to the start-finish straightaway, which may not be the longest of the entirety of this season. In fact, it's one of the shorter start-finish straightaways that we have here for this season for group number 1 of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. However, that start-finish straightaway, it is still mightily important, doubly so because you've got that Andretti hairpin at the end of it, which is just a prime bit of real estate in terms of overtaking.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a short run from the final corner up to the start to the finish line, but then you've got the nice crest of the hill, a little kink to the left down into the probably one of the best passing areas in the Andretti hairpin. It's a little tricky. But it is a good place because you're so hard on the brakes trying to get the car slowed down that you can kind of jaunt your way to the inside and maybe make a move, and it's a pretty good job to make it stick there. So yeah, that's a good spot to try and make a pass. And there's a couple spots, as we're still on board here with Kyle Robertson, that you don't want to try and make a pass. This would be one of them. And this is the kink coming up. I think this is the Ray Hall Straight, and then down into the corkscrew. If you can get a move done here before you get to the braking zone, that's your best bet. Otherwise, you start trying to make moves inside that corkscrew area, and it's generally a bad day for everybody involved.
Yeah, turn number 6, that kink. I've seen some drivers go for some moves into that corner in the past. I've also seen drivers barrel roll it going onto the Ray Hall straightaway. I'm not saying there's correlation between those two, but I'm not saying there isn't any correlation either. Looking at this qualifying session now with a minute and a half left to go, and as we've been talking about Miles Crabb, he's no longer your provisional pole sitter, as Lincoln Fox jumping up to the provisional pole to 136.193, the newcomer to the Ray Esports Series, certainly proving themselves to be a rather worthy adversary here tonight. The driver from the West, we'll have to check with him after this race to see whether or not he's from California, and this is his hometown track. But the driver of the number 48 car, regardless of where he's from, certainly proving himself to be very quick at the moment. That's a big gap to himself and Miles Crabb. And Miles Crabb, no slouch in this series either. He's yet to grab a win thus far in Group 1, but he's certainly gone close to it, and he's, I believe, won in some of the other series that we've got here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League. I believe he's won in Group 2, which you will be able to catch next week. That is 70-minute long GT4 races, so a bit of a departure compared to the race that we've got here this evening. Michelle Squirick, who's currently slotted in 4th at the moment in this qualifying session, has 3 wins in 4 races. The only other driver to score a win is Nicholas Royce-Puda, at least when it comes to the MX-5. Spec Miatas, though, a bit more up in the air. Seth Spolman grabbed the opening win of the season at Road Atlanta. Matt Thompson followed at Bathurst about a month later, with Skip Brock Jr. winning at VIR to bring 2024 to a close. And then to kick off 2025 here from the Ray Esports Club Racing League for Group Number 1, it was Ryan Campbell winning last time out at Daytona on January 22nd. So we've had 4 different winners in the Spec Miata category, but it's going to be Ryan Campbell grabbing that pole in the Spec Miata class. But at the front of the field overall, Lincoln Fox doing the job in that number 48 car to grab the overall pole, going to get the starting grid load up in just a couple of moments time and get things up and rolling from this first race of the evening. And it's going to be Lincoln Fox starting this race from the pole. Miles Crabb will join him on the front row. Kyle Robertson in the 215 car will start this race in 3rd, next to Michelle Squirick in 4th. Antonio Reese, a staple of the Weekend Warriors, which you can catch every single weekend here exclusively on SMB, will be starting in 5th, next to TJ Yankee in 6th. Scott Russell will start this race in the 7th starting spot, next to Jacob Schilling, completing that 4th row. Joshua Justice will find himself starting this race in 9th, alongside Bill Miller, rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, and then the final competitor in the MX5 Cup is Benjamin Foltz, starting 11th. Pole sitter for the Spec Miata is Ryan Campbell, starting in 12th. Seth Spolman, 13th. Chuck Labano in 14th. Row 8, Bowie Sewin from Florida in P15. Edgar Sancinelli in 16th. Matt Thompson, 17th. Andrew Lovin, 18th. Michelle Lynn, 19th. Mike Key in 20th. Joaquin Effinger in 21st, John Casey 22nd, Ken Estep in 23rd, and Aaron Bray in 24th, and Jason Grider rounds out your 25-car field for tonight.
And lots of these drivers that you see up and down the grid, they're either staples of the Ray Esports Series, which you can catch every single Wednesday here on SMB, or some other drivers that you can catch in the various Weekend Warrior Series, the Formula Vs, which you can catch on Saturdays, or the Formula Fords or Spec Racing Fords, which you can catch every single Sunday. But as it stands currently, we have got a really good Mazda race coming up for you here tonight. 30 minutes of racing action set to befall these drivers. A 30-minute long race, which is set to have a lot of drama baked into it. These drivers are going to be hoping that they can make it through that first lap clean. But with the way the Andretti hairpin has always been with races at Laguna Seca, that's going to be a bit tough of an ask.
Yeah, it really is, and you can just kind of get a view of it here. It's you're coming downhill. It's a hard braking zone, and it's almost a double apex left-hander. It is considered turn 1 and 2, the Andretti hairpin. So it's 180 degrees back around on itself. Very difficult to just kind of get the timing down in that corner, especially when you're kind of battling cars. And they're going to be probably 3 wide, 4 wide going down that for that first lap. Just everybody trying to just spread out and trying to find their lane. And then they'll get settled in as they start coming down through 3 and 4, 5 up to the kink at 6, and then over the crest to the top of the highest point of the track at the corkscrew, and then back down around to finish the lap. That final corner is very difficult. Lots of room in the runoff areas around here, but obviously, as you can see, lots of dirt. The kink is going to be very careful there. One lane, very difficult to pass there. You can do it, but it's got to be millimeter perfect, because if you get too far to the inside, you're going to hit that orange sausage curb on the inside of the corner. Outside, you're just going to be out in the dirt.
Yeah, Laguna Seca, a track with a whole lot of challenge backed into it and a whole lot of history baked into this track as well. Originally opened all the way back in 1957 with the current configuration we're running at tonight. Opened all the way back in 1996. For a while, though, the run between the Andretti hairpin and what is now turn number 5 was a complete straight line. It wasn't until the late 80s, 1988 to be a bit more precise, where the Andretti hairpin became the corner that we all know and love today. Laguna Seca, though, a wonderful track, and it's going to play host to some great racing action here tonight. That pace car making the turn to come down pit lane. The green flag is that, and the drivers are on their way. Looking like a pretty even kill start with both of our front row sitters. Miles Crab in that 131 car looking to maintain that run on the outside, heading off into the Andretti hairpin. It may not be the first corner around this racetrack, but it's the first time these drivers are going to have to drop the anchors and get woed up into the turn. Some drivers going side by side in the spec Miata field. Let's see how all of these racers negotiate the first series of corners. Looks like they get through the Andretti hairpin clean for the first time. However, heading off into turn number 3, 3 wide. That's not going to work at all, gentlemen, but they somehow got through clean.
Yeah, it was very, very clean start. I was really shocked that I didn't see a 3 wide or 4 wide going down in there, but everybody being very patient tonight, and looks like we're going to have a really good race on our hands.
And as we see these racers continue to fight, heading off through the mid-sector at the front of the field, though, it is still going to be Lincoln Fox at the front of Miles Crab and P2. However, Miles Crab may have a run heading up the Rahal straightaway into the corkscrew. Will he go for the move? He will not go for the move. Smart call from the driver of the 131 car. He's a veteran of this series. He's been in many situations like that before, and he knew that going side by side into the corkscrew at the very start of this 30-minute long race is a recipe for disaster. He didn't risk it. However, some drivers a little bit farther in the back certainly are. You can see side by side. That, I believe, was between Jason Grider and Mike Key heading off through the corkscrew. So as much as Miles Crab didn't risk it for the biscuit at the front of the field, some other drivers a little bit farther behind decided to instead.
Yeah, Mike Key actually was a little bit off. I think it was Grider and Bray that were battling there. Mike Key a little bit off the pace. I'm going to guess that he got off the track somewhere, lost a few seconds of lap time against the rest of the field. But we're just first lap of the race. We've got plenty of time to make some time up.
Yeah, plenty of time left to go in this race. You would think at the end of this first lap, we are already a 15th of a way into this 30-minute long race. So holy cow, time flies when you're having fun. But still looking at the drivers at the front. We still got 27 and a half minutes left to go. So certainly not the end of the world for some drivers that have found themselves involved in a couple of incidents, some side-by-side racing involving Jacob Schilling and contact being made with himself and TJ Yankee around on the exit of turn number 5. That's a precarious situation to find yourself in if you are the driver of the number 23 car. He's trying to get turned back around in the right direction, but the MX-5 Cup driver, who was running solidly inside the top 10, gonna get sent around as a result of a bump, a nudge, and a tap heading through turn number 5. Let's take a look at it here, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see on the TJ Yankee, just the car in front got loose and just was losing the rear and nowhere for TJ to go, and made contact and spun the car around. And so now we've got another car that's kind of on the back foot, is going to have to do a little work, as we see TJ also. Oh, there we go. And that's exactly what we were just talking about. Gets turned around, and now he's got to do a little work to get back up, and he's going to have to fight through a bunch of Spec Miatas to get back up to the group that he's been racing with.
Unfortunately, TJ Yankee being the puntee as a result of that collision hang all through turn at number 5. Jacob Schilling being the punter, and I gotta wonder if there's some sort of damage on the front end of that race car. He's currently running in 9th, which is the final car in the front pack of Spec Miata racers. Right behind Jacob Schilling, about a second back, I would have to say, is Ryan Campbell, your current leader in the Spec Miata class. However, that fight at the front of the Spec Miatas is rather intense, because you got Ryan Campbell immediately followed by his Frito Sport teammate of Chuck Labano, Seth Spolman, who already has a Spec Miata win this season, that coming at the opening race of this championship. He's currently slotted P12 overall, P3 of the Spec Miata drivers is Chuck Labano, doing a little bit of mudslinging coming out of turn number 5.
Yeah, a little bit wide on the exit there, but that's okay. As you can see, just how precise you have to be going through there. You're deep on the apex in the middle of the corner, and you're going to take that car all the way out into the rumble strips to make the fastest line through that corner, and it's very difficult. And to answer your question about Jacob Schilling, yes, there was damage on the front of his car. Like the right front was crunched a little bit. So, obviously with a track like this, there's a couple straightaways, but this is not a necessarily what we would call a draft track. So it's not going to hurt him too bad over the course of the race.
Yeah, especially around a racetrack like this, where in 2.25 miles, contact being made between Joaquin Effinger and John Casey. That's heading off through the second to last corner of turn number 10. Joaquin Effinger, the punter in all of that. John Casey being the puntee, and he's now rejoining the racetrack in the number 78 car, albeit losing out on a boatload of time. He's now down in 24th, second to last of the drivers still at there on the racetrack. You have to load up a replay to see what went wrong between these two racers. You can see Casey on the outside, Effinger on the inside, and that was Effinger. I can't really put that on Effinger. I think Casey just turned in with just about no regard to that car on the inside of him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what we're going to get a better look here. Yeah, he just tried to come into the apex, and I'm not sure if he saw Joaquin there or not, but definitely took too much turn in there and made contact with the Mazda of Joaquin Effinger and spun himself. And so now he's got some work to do with just over 6 minutes gone in the race.
And the Frito Sport driver in the number 78 car going off the track, probably not going to be music to the ears of Edgar Sancinelli, who's currently running P4 of the Spec Miata racers. Frito Sport man himself currently running in that number 57 car. He's involved in this battle. Now we see Andrew Love in the 945 car involved in as well. This is a small little hornet's nest forming in the Spec Miatas. You've got Seth Spolman in the number 42 car, Edgar Sancinelli in the 57, Matt Thompson right in front of Andrew Love right now in that number 33 machine, but a lot of drivers covered by practically nothing in this race. And look at that right behind you. You've also got Bowie Swen in the 216 and TJ Yankee. They're now side by side, hang down the start finish straight away. Yankee being a MX5 Cup driver, dealing with some of these Spec Miatas, but I will note the difference between the Spec Miatas just in terms of their visuals. And there we go, contact being made through turn number 2. Very, very well held from TJ Yankee. I was fully expecting that car to spin around yet again.
Yeah, that was close. It was a little contact. Luckily, it was just a rub, but so everybody got away with that one. But as you can see, these cars, I'll let you go over the differences, but there's not a lot in it between these two makes. I mean, it's just essentially it's an upgraded version of the old car. But there are a little bit of difference, and you can explain that. And but the lap times are very, very close.
Yeah, I can explain them both in a technical way and in a goofy way, and it being me on the air, I'll do both after I talk about Andrew Love crashing coming at turn number 6. That was a big hit for him into the inside wall. Lost it on exit, hits the inside wall, and that's some pretty major damage on that race car. That left front tire is broken. That's going to take Andrew Love out of this race in the 945 car. He found himself knocking on the door of the top 5 in the Spec Miatas. However, after that collision, he is going to be done for in this race. Let's take a look at runs a little bit wide, hits the gravel and the dirt on the outside, loops around and bang into the wall. That's a big hit in that 945 car. That's going to take him out of contention. That left front tire broken off, the suspension snapping like a toothpick, but he's still running around the racetrack. Credit where credit's due to Andrew Love, having the tenacity of a maniacal crazy person. However, he's not got the steering angle to be able to make it down into the pits. He toes on the runoff area of turn number 10, and look at that. That's so sad. It looks like that car is leaning against the concrete in despair. It's a rather battered Spec Miata car.
Yeah, we can say Andrew drove the wheels off that one. So he tried to bring it back, but yeah, just eventually just complete wheel failure on that left front, and had to tow it back to the pits.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate for Andrew Love. A simple mistake heading through turn number 6. But Charles, we outlined that corner earlier on, and can't really be too surprised that a driver got hit by that bullet. Was expecting a driver mainly to lose it on the inside curb. The amount of times I've hit that killer red sausage curb on the inside and just pinged myself off into Narnia is unbelievable. As we see the drivers a little bit farther up towards the front, Kyle Robertson still running in third behind Miles Crabb and Lincoln Fox, who continues to lead this race. But I want to go back to the point I was going to mention a few moments ago, right as we were seeing that collision for Andrew Love, kind of outlining the differences between the Spec Miata race cars that we're seeing outlined in red and the MX-5 Cup cars that we're seeing a little bit farther towards the front. There's definitely a pace differential between the two, and you can see that in terms of the lap times that your leaders have set in both of the classes. Lincoln Fox setting 136s, Ryan Campbell in the 140s. In terms of qualifying pace, it was right about the same gap. Lincoln Fox grabbed that overall pole to 136.1. Meanwhile, in the Spec Miata category with the older generation in iRacing, it was a 139.6 4-year pole sitter of Ryan Campbell. So that's a pretty significant gap around a racetrack like this, where these drivers are only setting about 90-ish second lap times, 95, 96-ish seconds, somewhere between 90 and 100 seconds to be sure. So that's a rather big cushion to have. And around a racetrack like this, it really outlines the way that these two race cars drive, also the way that they are for these drivers. The newer MX-5 Cup car, released into iRacing at Scanda, I believe, in 2016. That's a bit newer in terms of the way it drives, and it's a bit more user-friendly, if that makes sense. Beginner-friendly, if you would. It's the base iRacing rookie car. I've had my experience driving that car in the sim quite a lot. Pretty much everyone who's outside of rookies, or even still in rookie class in iRacing, has driven that MX-5 Cup car before. That car, you can drive it around with paddle shifters. You can do that. Going into a Spec Miata, though, you have to drive this thing. If you do have a stick shift, you have to drive it stick. My stick shift's currently broken, so I had to drive it manually with paddle shifts, which is about as unintuitive as trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with your eyeballs. So it doesn't really work out very well at all.
No, there are ways to do it, but it's in the iRacing configuration. You can allow it to what they call auto blip, to allow you to be able to use your paddle shifters. But yeah, as we talked about, it's it's an older spec car versus a newer spec car, and 4 seconds a lap difference, which it doesn't. It's a pretty massive gap, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, not all that much. Especially when we're talking about the fastest of the group. Where the trouble lies is in the slower drivers in the top group versus the faster drivers in the bottom group, and that's where that mesh point is where it seems to have all the issues. And I mean, if we were just on board with Chuck Lomano, he's still got a CD player in his, so that shows you how old that car is.
I think I'm going to briefly hint at a discussion that we had on the air literally 24 hours ago, Charles, albeit on a different broadcast, so that we will not mention my name, talking about the old VW Jetta on iRacing. some of the older road course cars, the old rookie cars on iRacing were just absolute meme machines. That Jetta, I remember when I first joined the Ray Esports world as a commentator was in season 8 of the old Tuesday night Ray Esports series. And at that point in time, there was still the TCR category that ran not TCR. It was just I believe it was called TC at that point in time. Gotta get the right nomenclature done here properly. I doubt there's anyone that would be correcting me either way. However, I will still attempt to correct myself and probably be even more incorrect than I was at the start. But the VW Jetta was used a couple of this was back in late 2023, and I distinctly remember saying on the air the fact that the steering wheel was not exactly a circle, it was more like a tetradecahedron. So a shape with like 50 sides or something like that. That I believe is not the correct term, tetradecahedron. I'll have to double check myself.
Yeah,
I think it's probably right. 24. You can tell I was great in geometry as a kid. Most of my geometry lessons I taught were done by myself, just designing racetracks on like pen and paper as a kid, just being like, oh, this looks like a really good corner. And meanwhile, every single tire manufacturer in the world looks at this like 978-degree corner that I drew where these drivers would be going through it at like 6th gear and be like, there are no materials on God's green earth that can make a tire that'd be able to withstand that. But with that long rambling menagerie out of the way, hey, it wouldn't be a broadcast without me if it wasn't something like that going on. We're coming up to the halfway mark in this race already, man. Time flies when you are having fun. That's still Lincoln Fox at the front of the field. However, these front 3 drivers, they're staying tabs with each other in terms of pace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just still a pretty nice battle up front. You've got 3 cars separated by less than a second. And so it's kind of what we expect. And, when you get cars that are spec cars, everybody's got the same same equipment under them. It's just a matter how fast can you wheel it around the track. This is what we live for. We love to see these tight battles up in the front.
Yeah, and certainly giving us a tight battle are these 3 racers. It's still Lincoln Fox leading over Miles Crab in P2. Kyle Robertson riding on your podium in 3rd as it stands at the moment. Just giving a quick mention to the Spec Miata drivers. It's Ron Campbell, Chuck Labano, Matt Thompson, who are currently completing your podium in the Spec Miata class. All 3 of which are Frito Sport drivers. So the Frito Sport drivers invading this series and doing a rather good job of it as it stands at the present moment. Joshua Justice giving us a battle to talk about between himself and Scott Russell. That's for P6 overall as it stands at the moment. Those 2 nose to tail hang through the corkscrew.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Josh working his way up to the outside, coming through there. That's a nice battle right there. I think Josh is going to get this here as he comes through the final corner, or penultimate corner, excuse me. Yep. Nice move by Josh. To get around Scott Russell. So Josh's Duncan run has been successful for today. And so they'll continue on and see if Scott can return the favor.
And as we look at these drivers giving us a good battle at the end of this 10th lap that they were just on, I will mention that your current hard charger as it stands at the present moment is found in the Spec Miatas in the form of Aaron Bray in the number 25 car. He's up 5 spots from where he started in this race. However, he does have some rather stiff competition as Matt Thompson in the number 33 car, also a Spec Miata driver. He's up 4 spots and has room to make up more, so he may be able to steal that category award from Aaron Bray. You don't get any points for being the hard charger, but you do get a couple of mentions from us on the air, so that's going to be a good battle to talk about in terms of those racers. As Edgar Sancinelli, running down in 18th, has run into some sort of difficulties. He's now out of this race. I think there may have been an incident with Sancinelli a couple of moments ago because he was running okay, then he started dropping down like a rock, and then he went from dropping down like a rock to dropping down like a helicopter pushed out of an anvil pushed out of a helicopter. Man, my dyslexia came back to bite me badly there as contact with Sancinelli sent him off the track heading through turn number 9 of Rainy Curve. And I think he just decided to call it a night after that.
Yeah, kind of what it looks like. He's sitting in the pits. Ooh, a little bit of contact there, and he's going to try and, just back to the pits, and think that is day done for Edgar. Looks like he is not going to rejoin the race. My guess is we'll probably see him over in the TCRs in a few minutes' time. A lot of these drivers will jump over and run the second race as well. So we'll see if he ends up showing up for the TCR race here in just a few minutes' time.
And that TCR race, 40 minutes in length, going to be immediately following this race here for the Mazdas. But hey, we still got a lot of racing action left to go here in this Mazda Mania race tonight. Quickly approaching the end of this Ray Esports Club season. Only 7 races for these 3 groups, and now that we're kicking off round number 5. Man, this adventure that started all the way back in late October, slowly but surely approaching an end, and you've been able to catch all of the action here on SMB, not only for tonight's broadcast, but for all of the broadcasts of the season thus far. And hey, if you've been enjoying the racing action thus far, and my strange metaphor of, pushing a helicopter out of an anvil, that should give you a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Not only for the racing action, but just to hear what sort of stupid crap comes out of my mouth next, as we see a side-by-side fight starting to cool off between Seth Spallman and Bowie Swen. Those 2 drivers were battling for 14th a couple of moments ago. They also had some pressure from Benjamin Fultz right behind, who's one of the last drivers in the MX-5s.
Sorry about that.
I'll
sorry,
get there, Charles. I guess
just completely bumfuzzled. As my phone is just erupting.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of time to get your stuff.
Thank you very much. All right.
And so
all right,
I will. Yep. All good.
I hope so. I hope so. I basically turned my phone off at this point. So,
fingers crossed. I will ask this just because I've been hearing the news. Was there some sort of weather alerts that you're potentially getting? Because I know there's been some rather big storms that were sweeping across the country. It gave us 4 inches of snow up here in Philadelphia a couple of days ago. So was that potentially weather related?
There is. Yeah, no, it's heavy rain and a little bit of lightning that's in the area. But no, it's just my daughter calling me 100 times because she wants to talk, and I haven't talked to her in 2 weeks. But that's neither here nor there. It's fine. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out when the broadcast is over.
Yeah, I think we may need to use that break between the Mazdas and the TCR race to let you handle that. That's I'm just gonna leave that be. I will not get involved in this debate. And look at some of the nice paint schemes that we've got in this field right now.
Let's get back to the race here. It looks like we got some lap traffic ahead.
Oh yeah, that we do. That's some of the spec Miata drivers. That I believe is Ken Estep that they're going to be catching up to. Actually, no, that is not. You can see John Casey. He's already been put a lap down. So that I think maybe Joaquin Effinger and Jason Grider that they're going to be catching up to in the not too far off future. They've already caught up to Effinger. There you can see him getting displaced in that number 700 car. He's running in 20th as it stands at the present moment. Shows you the pace differential between these spec Miatas and the MX-5s. The fact that they're already seeing some lap traffic encounters. We'll note, obviously, that we saw Effinger involved in that incident with himself and John Casey earlier on, but Effinger not losing out a terrible amount of time as a result of all that. Those drivers not getting involved in incidents. It's just been a little bit of a pace differential between some of those drivers. And your shovel. Hello, Mr. Thompson.
Meow.
Okay. So... So we got a story to share. So to those who haven't been tuning into this series intently throughout the championship, a couple of weeks ago, for I believe it was the last race. Actually, it was not the last race from the championship. I believe it was the last round of Group 2 at Road Atlanta. This broadcast was going on around the same time that the Sim Racers Group F4 Championship broadcast was starting, which you can catch every single Wednesday night, also here on SMB. And our esteemed colleague and still technically the owner of Slow Motion Broadcasting, Mr. Adam Thompson, he was down there with our other esteemed colleague in the form of Mike Braun, decided midway through this show to decide to be an idiot, as I usually am, go down there and say, "Pardon me, I have nothing to say." And then immediately following that, Adam popped into the commentary booth while we were live, meowed into the microphone, and then left. So I think I've created a monster, Charles.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. So as if we didn't have enough stuff going on in and amongst the race that we're supposed to be broadcasting. So looks like they've cleared the traffic, and there's a pretty good sized gap between Jason Grider and Aaron Bray. So don't know that we're going to be able to catch the next couple of cars in the group here. So it looks like that we're going to get some good racing. Looks like that Robertson's fallen off just a little bit off of the back of the pair of Fox and Crab. With about 6 minutes left to go in the race. So what, 4 laps?
I think doing the math in my head, which, bearing in mind, folks, it's me doing math in my head. That's a recipe for disaster. It's a good thing I'm a racing commentator instead of a scientist for NASA. So I think that stands about right, though, Charles. So coming to about 3 laps left to go here from this race, the 5th here for group number 1 and the first race of this evening. And at the front of the field, it's turning into a 2-horse race between Lincoln Fox and Miles Crab. Kyle Robertson dropping back a little bit as of late. Even last time by, it was about 0.3 of a second slower than Miles Crab and 0.2 slower than your leader of Fox. I've been patiently looking at Miles Crab, and I think Miles Crab has been patiently running in P2. He hasn't forced the issue too much on Lincoln Fox. However, he certainly has the pace to do it. I think by and large, consistently, Miles Crab has been faster than the driver of the number 48 car right in front of him. So I think he's just been lurking around and waiting for the right time to pounce.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like he has just managed to just keep that gap nice and consistent up to Fox in front, and just maybe a matter of time. We'll see what kind of defensive skills that Fox has, because I'm sure Crab is really wants to get a win this season, and has been running well, and just hasn't had the luck on his side. So see if he gets a chance to make a move for the race victory tonight.
Yeah, let's see if he'll be able to get the move done. These two looking for their first win of the season here for the group number 1 action from the Wright Esports Club Racing League. It's been the story of Michelle Squirick and Nicholas Royce-Puto, who has not been joining us as of late here from the Wright Esports Club Racing League, a real-life driver who runs some Mazda machinery and some Spec Racer Ford machinery in real life, has not been joining us over the past couple of weeks, so we hope everything is going well with him. Michelle Squirick, though, a little bit uncharacteristic from Squirick. She just hasn't really been in contention for the win in this race in terms of pace, but still running in 4th. She has 3 wins thus far this season in 4 races. It's not going to be 4 in 5 unless some major drama happens at the front of the field, with her running down in 4th, about 12 seconds-ish back of your leader of Lincoln Fox. But either way, it's going to be a new winner winning in the MX-5 Cup cars at the end of this race. How things stand at the present moment, Lincoln Fox yet to grab a win in his series debut, mind you. Miles Crab certainly not his series debut, but yet to grab a win thus far this season. Has been struck by his fair share of falling anvils, and Kyle Robertson in the 215 car certainly looking to impress as well. But Charles, as we're seeing this race develop, I'm still keeping my tabs on Crab.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the thing that you're going to have to watch out for. That is the battle for the win, and so we'll keep an eye out as he's looking to the outside here. I don't think there's going to be room to make that move, but he's getting a good launch into the next set of corners. Yep. So far nothing yet, but we got more lap traffic in front. They caught him quicker than I thought they were going to. So it looks like we're going to have a couple of cars that may end up getting in the way here. So we'll see if they can get through these clear spec Miatas and get them out of the way. We got that's Michelle Lynn. They're going to be able to clear her.
And Michelle Lynn in that striking. Oh, yeah, sorry to step on your toes there, Charles. Michelle Lynn in that striking number 44 car. She's off the back of her first win in the Ray Esports Club Racing League. That coming in the Formula V race for group number 3 1 week ago at Willow Springs. Unfortunately, I was still recovering from a pretty bad bout of illness, so I was unable to be on that broadcast 1 week ago. But I would like to congratulate Michelle, a Philadelphia native much like myself, for her win 1 week ago, and hopefully she celebrated with the prerequisite Philadelphia celebration cheesesteak. And who knows, maybe some of her friends here in the city of Philadelphia were climbing up some light poles. Or actually, no, we didn't just climb the light poles. We knocked some of the light poles down and started parading them around the streets like a bunch of ants would parade some breadcrumbs that they picked up at a picnic. What in the world am I saying? Anyways, Michelle Lynn currently running P18 overall as it stands at the present moment, getting out of the way of the drivers at the front of the field. It's still a 2-horse race between Lincoln Fox and Miles Crabb, and they're coming to the white flag this time by. Kyle Robertson has been struggling as of late. He's been dropping down like a rock in the pace department, so looks like it's still going to be a P3 if he can hold on and not have any sort of major turn of events between himself and Michelle Squire, who's 12 seconds back. But at the front of the field, it's definitely a 2-horse race with that white flag in the air. Only one more lap of racing action here from the Mazdas at Laguna Seca. It's Lincoln Fox taking that white. The real question is, will he be able to take the checkered flag? We'll note that Miles Crabb has dropped back a little bit in terms of pace last time by, 2/10 being the difference between the two of them in terms of their lap times. Miles Crabb losing out a little bit to Lincoln Fox, so he's trying to play me like a fiddle, as much as I've been saying all throughout this race that he's been very, very quick. Maybe falling off at the worst possible time, but hey, you still got about a half a lap left to go. Lincoln Fox exiting turn number 4 for the last time in this race, and that gap between Lincoln Fox and Crabb not really decreasing as much as I would probably have in mind if you are Miles Crabb. And Lincoln Fox still needs to hold on. It's not as much of a cushion as he would probably want. If he does have a mistake, that's still going to end in tears. Meanwhile, looking at your current Spec Miata leader of Ryan Campbell, he has a gap between himself and his teammates, his Frito Sport teammate of Chuck Labano, about 3 coming up to 4 seconds between those two racers. So that's a pretty big spread of the three Frito Sport cars. Try saying that 5 times fast, with the 33 of Matt Thompson in P3 of the Spec Miata racers, fittingly in 13th. But as we see a little bit farther behind them, the battle for the win is very much on between Fox and Crabb. Crabb was able to close up that gap a lot in the mid to final sector of this lap. Heading into the final quarter for the last time, though, Lincoln Fox is going to be leading them, coming through it and coming out of it. Crabb sideways, slideways, coming out of turn number 11. He pushed that car to the limit of control, but he's not going to be spraying champagne. Lincoln Fox, though, he takes the win in his series debut from the Ray Esports Club Racing League. The Mazda Mania is won by Lincoln Fox. Ryan Campbell still has one more lap of racing action. It's going to feel like a heck of a long time for those leaders in the Spec Miata class to be able to cross that line. But Ryan Campbell on track for a dominant win, but Lincoln Fox holding off the Shetland from Crabb. That is a mightily impressive result for the driver making their debut in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. Great run by Fox. And, you saw Crabb he wanted to get on the throttle and try and get a run. He was making up some time coming into the final couple of corners and just overcooked it a little bit. Those rumble strips on the outside. As we get we have Bill Miller coming across the start-finish line. And so tried to make it work, just loose to the rear end, and we'll settle for second place tonight.
And as we see Ryan Campbell head his way down into turn number 11, hoping not to be as sideways as Miles Crabb was a couple of moments ago. I say well held from Crabb to be able to keep that car going without ending up in one of the barriers around that start-finish straightaway. Ryan Campbell ends up winning it. That is his second win in a row from the season, and the first driver to get multiple wins. Oh boy, worst time to get hiccups. First driver to get multiple wins in the Spec Miata class thus far this season for group number 1 of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. And as we see some more drivers cross the line, it was a hard-fought race. And hey, folks, tuning into this stream, we still got one more left to go, an even longer race with the TCRs. That's going to be some good stuff to look forward to here in a couple of minutes' time once we get that underway. But I believe all of the cars have taken the checkered flag, so we'll be able to get those results hopefully loaded up in a couple of moments, and then brace ourselves for that TCR race we have coming up. I gotta wonder what the weather forecast is going to be looking like. Those TCR cars, of course, do have rain in the factor, unlike these Mazdas, that Spec Miata car. Another difference between the MX-5 Cup and the Spec Miata car, Spec Miata does not have rain support yet. Keyword being yet. Maybe iRacing's going to work on that. Maybe they are working on that. Who knows? I don't know. That's I've done broadcasts on iRacing's YouTube channel, but that is still way above my pay grade. Lincoln Fox, though, gonna have a good payday here at Laguna Seca. Grabs the checkered flag as your winner in the Mazda race. Miles Crabbe going to finish 1.3 seconds back in P2, with Kyle Robertson riding at your podium in third. Michelle Squire in a relatively disappointing P4. It's still a great result from Squire regardless. She's already got 3 wins thus far this season. Certainly not going to be too upset with a 4th place run here at Laguna Seca. Antonio Riso, I don't think we talked about it all throughout that race. He did a very good job to hold on to a top 5 spot at the end of this race. Joshua Justice going to finish right behind in 6th. Scott Russell will finish in P7. Bill Miller, with a name that I feel like if I tried saying 5 times fast, I'll get my tongue wrapped around my teeth about 15 times, ends up in 8th. Jacob Schilling will finish in 9th, and TJ Yankee going to round out your overall top 10.
Yeah, and then in the Spec Miata class, Frito Sport sweeps the podium. Ryan Campbell gets the win. Chuck Labano second. Matt Thompson third, and that's 11th, 12th, 13th overall. 14th, Seth Spolman, Bowie Suin. In 15th, Benjamin Foles from the MX-5 Cup finished in 16th. Aaron Bray in 17th. Michelle Lynn in 18th. Jason Grider in 19th. John Casey finishes 20th. Joaquin Effinger in 21st. Mike Key 22nd. Ken Estep finishes 23rd. Edgar Sancinelli out early, finishing in 24th. Andrew Love with the big crash very early in the race. In the kink, finishes in 25th position.
And that is going to round out your results from the first race of the evening. A race which had a lot of action throughout it, it must be said, but at the end of it all, it is the newcomer Lincoln Fox grabbing the win in the MX-5s, and in the Spec Miatas, Ryan Campbell going back-to-back in that number 24 Frito Sport car. Looks like no drivers are going to be joining us in the interview waiting area to have a chat with us at the end of that MX-5 race. So I think we're going to cut to a commercial break. We got to keep the lights on here on these broadcasts somehow. We get to do that every single week thanks to the generous support of Sim Motion, but you'll hear about them in a little bit once we're back from these messages.
Through dip 50, slowing crest 40, 1 left. Caution to 2 right short to 5.
Introducing the Sim Motion Rally Sequential Shifter. Our shifter is specifically designed for sim racing enthusiasts who want to enhance their experience in the rally world using a push-pull system. Compatible with wheelbases like the Sim Magic Alpha series, V&M Direct Drive, Fanatic, and SimuCube. It can easily be installed in minutes. It also has the adjustability to suit any wheel or driver's needs. It's also plug and play with titles like Dirt Rally, iRacing, and WRC. Available now at sim-motion.com. Sim Motion has teamed up with iRacing and V&M Simulation with an extreme prize package for Season 4. To win, paint any car with a Sim Motion logo, race in 10 official iRacing events, and you are entered to win an extreme direct drive and GT wheel bundle. But that's not all. Compete in the Formula 1600 Fixed Series, win your division, and you could score this set of pedals. Gear up and get racing. The rewards are waiting. With years of experience and a passion for customer service, SimMotion is a trusted name for SimMagic products. Whether you're just getting started or a seasoned pro, we have the gear to get you on the podium. At SimMotion, we don't just sell gear, we feel your passion for sim racing.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to tonight's coverage of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. This is round number 5 for group number 1, coming to you tonight from Laguna Seca. To those tuning into this broadcast right now who haven't been seeing the entirety of the show thus far, we had a brilliant Mazda race, and the action is set to continue here with the TCRs. My name is Ron Maunz. Charles Bichelle is alongside me in the commentary booth. We also got Josh Wilkie doing a fine job working on the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hauler. And we just heard a couple of moments ago from a fine sponsor that's been able to make all of these broadcasts throughout this fantastic season possible, that being SimMotion, as it has been the case throughout the entirety of the season. Tonight's broadcast of the Ray Esports Club Racing League on Slow Motion Broadcasting is brought to you by SimMotion. SimMotion is a store by sim racers for sim racers, carrying everything from bun boxes to steering wheels and the best brands from the sim racing world, including SimMagic, Moza, Husingveld, and many, many more. With decades of experience in the industry, SimMotion is a great choice for sim racers in both North America and Europe looking to upgrade their simulators. If you'd like to check out what SimMotion has to offer, go to us.sim-motion.com. That's us.sim-motion.com. SimMotion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series here on iRacing, but is a proud partner of the Ray Esports Club Racing League, and feel free to use discount code RAY5 for some very sweet discounts. And you know, we've heard the ads, and I've done my own ad read enough. I think all of you tuning into this broadcast should probably know that SimMotion is good. But for tonight's broadcast, we have actually got a customer testimonial from my co-commentator here in the commentary booth. Charles, you want to share a story of what happened the other night?
No, well, we'll talk about part one of this story. Is was getting ready for my league race that I participate in, and my brake pedal of my 4-year-old pedals just decided that it wanted to throw a rod, more or less. And so no more load cell brakes. So I will be becoming a SimMotion customer. I've already identified a nice set of pedals that I'm going to order here in the next couple of days, and as soon as I get them in, we'll talk about it, and we'll rave at the customer service and everything, and everything will be true, because I will not lie about it. But I have faith that SimMotion will do a fantastic job with my order when I place it. So you stick around for part 2 of that coming in the next week or so.
I gotta get the full report as to everything going on with those new pedals, and hoping those pedals are working out pretty well. Gotta say, I am definitely not going to. won't say this to discredit your own struggles with the pedal failure that you had the other night, Charles. However, I will thank you for the fact that did happen, because you were going to be driving in a league race of a broadcast that was going on at a different broadcaster, and I was set to do that show solo, which, you know, I've done solo shows in the past. I've done some that were like 2.5 hours long, which is not a fun experience for your vocal cords, and probably not a fun experience for the viewers as well, because I was basically, I remember one time in one of the first solo shows that I did, I had one of my distant family members get in contact with me saying that they heard the show and compared it to one of our other relatives' religious fervor. In fact, they said that it sounded like I was talking in tongues throughout that show. Let's do an onboard lap of Kerry Anderson. Hang down now into the Andretti hairpin of turn number 2. Currently qualified 8th as it stands at the present moment in that number 78 Audi. Heading through that hairpin at turn number 2, hitting the curbs on the inside. These TCRs, you can get to clobber the curbs around this racetrack, which is certainly important. I want to do some lawn mowing, though, coming out turn number 3 in these front-wheel drive cars, though. That is a bit of a feature of them. And that was 3/4 of a lap guide here at Laguna Seca. We're going to pretend that that didn't happen. Here's Tyler Heron, who we're running on board with, hanging that down into the braking zone of turn number 5, going down the gears and trying to get a good exit out of here. This corner is so tough in these front-wheel drive race cars, like this Honda that we've been riding on board with all throughout this lap. This may be the biggest tough spot for these drivers. So turn number 6, that front-wheel drive screeching understeer, kicking in right as you're trying to get on the power and get a good exit, going up the hill, now into the right haul straightaway, now through the corkscrew. This is going to be tough for these race cars. You can see the drivers putting in well over 90 degrees of steering the lock, heading through the corkscrew, now downhill into rainy curve understeer, gonna crank into these race cars, hitting that curb and trying to use all the asphalt available to you, hitting the inside curb through turn number 10, the second to last corner around this racetrack. Here's the final corner, the hairpin, turn number 11. You can see the amount of steering angle that Tyler Heron is having to put in that Honda just to keep it going around this racetrack, but that is still going to be a lap of Laguna Seca with no detours whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to tell you this, I mentioned this in a previous broadcast, and it might have been the one you were at, is you might have not been around for this, but TCRs and I do not get along. And this just seems like just a very, very difficult track with the elevation changes, and you have to get really smooth on the brakes because that front end just has a tendency to just bite into the track and lift the rear end of the car up, and then around you go. So yeah, then obviously we talk about the understeer being a front-wheel drive, front engine, front-wheel drive car. All the weights up front, all the steering's up front. You got the brakes up front that are doing the majority of the work, and so you're trying to get on the power, brake, steer, everything just on those front tires. And it's a very challenging car to drive. And I think the people who get out here and race these things and always do a good job will always do a good job, and will show you what these cars are capable of.
As you can see, this qualifying session officially brought to a conclusion, so we can now switch our focus into this 40-minute long race that we've got coming up for you here tonight. And with that being said, let's take a look at the starting grid. It's going to be Will Pierre in the number 17 car starting this race on the pole. Jake Sneddon, who's been very quick all throughout this TCR season, going to join him on the front row. Miles Crabb, who was oh so close to victory in that Mazda race we had a couple of moments ago, will start this race in third, alongside Ian Anderson completing that second row. Kyle Robertson, who's also battling for a podium spot in that Mazda race, ended up third in that Mazda Mania race a couple of moments ago, will start this race in the TCRs in fifth, alongside Matt Thompson in sixth. Ryan Campbell, who won in the Mazdas earlier on tonight, will start in seventh. Nolan Bromer going to start alongside on that fourth row. Rounding out top 10, it's going to be Edgar Sancinelli and Dylan Vose.
Yeah, it's starting in 11th is Kerry Anderson, Tyler Heron in P12. Seth Spolman starts in 13th, Josh Justice 14th, Chuck Labano in 15th, Nemo Tagalag in 16th, Mike Key 17th, Ken Estep in 18th, Joaquin Effinger 19th, Scott Russell 20th, and Aaron Bray rounds out your 21 car grid.
21 cars set to grab the green flag in about a lap's time. Hey, we did, that was pretty good timing from us, Charles. We managed to get through all the 21 starters before they even started on this formation lap. And I will note at this point in time, the fact these TCR race cars, they make the Porsche pace car look like a small little insect in comparison. These cars are giant.
They are pretty big size. They are pretty big cars in comparison to that little Porsche 911. But you know, then if you put them out there in the with the GT4s, not so much. They don't quite stand out nearly as much as they do here. But yeah, looking forward to a good race. Obviously, 21 car grid's a pretty good sized grid for this track, so this is going to be pretty interesting on the start. Once again, same little things that we talked about for the Mazda race. Turn one, critical, get through there clean, get your lap going, get the tires hot, get some good temp in them, good temp in the brakes. Careful through the kink and up the Rahal straightaway to the corkscrew. And then once you get through all that, then you can start doing some racing for real.
And these drivers hoping to have some good racing action to complete their evening or late afternoon, depending on where they are. I'm curious, actually. I'm going to look through. We've seen in the past this season that Brad Cathcart, who's an Australian who you occasionally see in this series and quite often see in the Weekend Warriors, which you can catch every single Saturday and Sunday here on SMB, has been joining us for this race meeting. So we can't say it's a morning of racing action for him, but most of these drivers either in their late evening, early evening, whatever it may be. I'm not sure what the difference is between like late afternoon and early evening. I guess they're kind of interchangeable. I don't really know when it comes to that sort of stuff. I'm an expert in race cars. I'm not an expert in ways to describe time. I don't think anyone is. Even Father Time himself, I think, would get tripped up from time to time. The pun absolutely intended there, but nevertheless, ready to get things up and rolling from this TCR race. We got 40 minutes of racing action set to begin in a couple of moments time, set to begin right now. The green flag is out and the drivers are on their way, heading down the start finish straightaway over the crest of the hill, careening their way now down into the Andretti hairpin at turn number 2. We are very lucky in the Mazdas to get through this corner clean. Let's see if we go 2 for 2 in the TCR. Some 3 wide action involving Nolan Bromer in the Taco Bell car, looking not to get his bell rung at the start of this race. That's an off-track moment for the number 7 car. A little bit farther in the back, that right there was Nemo Tagalag. He's gone off the circuit. Some drivers already starting this race from the pits, mainly Joaquin Effinger and Aaron Bray. Scott Russell, I believe, did not even take to the start of the formation lap, so some drivers already on the back foot.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad thought, is if you're just now getting into a car class and you're a little unsure and you just got out of the Mazdas, because both Joaquin and Aaron did, then, you know, pit starting's not the worst strategy in the world. Yeah, you're going to be a little behind, but, you know, you'll get to run some clean laps, and maybe that'll allow you to make up some time on the back of the field.
Yeah, maybe that'll work as a good strategy. Not feel the pressure as well of having to just force yourself into maybe going a little bit quicker at the start of this race than they maybe had in mind, as that's Mike Key around in the corkscrew in the 998 car. That Honda hitting the barrier. You can see the tire marks there through the dirt. So that was a rather simple spin coming out of the corkscrew, but it's going to have some rather major consequences for the 998 car. We might have to load up a replay to see the contact being made, but that was a rather significant tap. I can hear the unmistakable sound of the front and back of that race car scraping against the concrete barrier. Concrete barriers around this racetrack acting like a cheese grater on these race cars. Some side-by-side racing involving Dylan Vos and Nolan Bromer, one in an Audi, the other in a Honda, heading off through the Andretti hairpin. That's going to be that Audi of Vos getting that job done to move his way up into 9th. A lot of drivers already making moves while this race is underway. Josh Justice up 2 spots. He's running in 12th as it stands currently. He's a hard charger, but Jake Sneddon has done a hard charge to get up to the front of the field. Yeah,
Great start by everybody. We've got a couple of people that moved up a little bit, a couple people moved down a little bit. I think we've got a replay coming of the Mike Key incident. as we see two cars going off in the kink, and here's Mike Key coming down into the corkscrew, and let's see, just a little oversteer, and maybe a little too hard back on the throttle, and you can see the contact with the concrete barrier and some damage on the right front of the car.
So that was unfortunate for Key. He just got slideways coming out of the corkscrew. That was unfortunate for him. That was a very bizarre looking collision as well. Just looped it all on his own. So unfortunate for Mike Key to have that moment. And looking through, you see a little bit of scraping on the front end of that race car. So not a whole lot of damage done. However, not ideal at all for the driver of the 998 car. But outside of that, it was a rather clean opening lap to the race. Some scraping for sure with some of the drivers, the close quarters racing that we had at the very drop of the green flag, but nevertheless, been a rather clean start. And as I say that, Mike Key has gone off the track yet again, heading through turn number 11. Perfect time for me to mention, outside of that's been rather clean for some of these drivers, including Key, and then bang, he goes off the track, heading through turn number 11 again. But jumping back to live action and seeing side-by-side racing, having Chuck Labano in the number 13 car. He's leading a small little train of himself, Josh Justice, and Seth Spallman. Spallman and Justice side-by-side in the two Hyundais, heading off into turn number 5. Looks like they get through line astern. Justice making up another move to slip his way up into 11th, but Jake Snedden, he got the move done on Will Pierre to be able to jump into the race lead. Well done from Snedden. He's been very fast throughout this season, already has 3 wins, that coming in rounds number 1, 2, and 4. Ian Anderson, the only other driver to grab a win thus far, as side by side between the two Hyundais yet again, this time with Justice and Labano nearly coming to blows coming out of the corkscrew.
Yeah, absolutely. It was some very tight racing in there. So Justice actually kind of backed out a little bit going into the entry of the corkscrew, but he was close enough that Labano actually went wide through into the dirt, and when he came back out, Justice was right on his side. They had a little touch, nothing major, but both survived, and they'll continue racing. Justice does take the spot. He's up to P10. We'll say that Matt Thompson has already been into the pits and for service. And he's back out on the track, but he's running in P20.
And we still got a lot of time left to go in this race, so it's not completely game over, still not ideal start at all. But nevertheless, looking at these drivers still running in this race, Dylan Vos running the rally line, coming out of turn number 4. That's not the smart call at all. He's now going to be side by side with himself and Nemo Tagalag. Actually, my apologies, that's Tyler Heron running right behind him. I don't know why I confused Dylan Vos for Chuck Labano there, but no, that is Tyler Heron in the number 11 car, currently running in 8th as it stands at the present moment behind Dylan Vos. And these two, if they battle a little bit hard, it may bring Kerry Anderson involved in this fight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All it takes is a couple little side-by-side battles, and it just brings those cars behind up a little bit closer if they want to get involved in that as well. So we see just a great battle so far. It was good, clean racing up through the Ray Hall straight into the corkscrew. And here's Heron still running at 8th. He's still chasing that Audi of Dylan Vos. And now we're on board there with Kerry Anderson in her Audi, and Josh Justice hanging right behind them.
And I gotta say, a lot of separate drivers running in this race, and a lot of very good drivers as well. You look at a driver like Josh Justice, he's yet to grab a win thus far in the TCRs and finds himself running 11th at this very early point of this 40-minute long race. But Josh Justice is very fast in the Ray Esports / Weekend Warriors world, a real-life Spec Racer 4 driver who does all of that despite being deaf. He is a very fascinating gentleman, a very good racer as well. He's won in Group 3 here in the Ray Esports Club Series. So Joshua Justice, always a good driver to keep tabs on, currently running in 10th as it stands at the moment. Really shows just the pool of talent that we've got in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Josh is a really, really strong racer, and it doesn't matter what car he's in. He just goes out there and wheels it, and you can see that real world experience. Even if it's just Spec Racer Ford, there's a lot to be said for getting out and putting a car on a racetrack and driving it as fast as you can make it go. and that brings in some good results into this sim racing world as well. Now be careful on those inside curbs out there, Josh.
Yeah, those red killer curbs on the inside. Can't call them turtle curbs because I feel like if I was going to the zoo and I saw a turtle that was red, I would just assume a bunch of jackasses from the city of Philadelphia broke into the zoo and spray painted a poor turtle red, which I think that's probably happened at some point in the history of the Philadelphia Zoo. I remember one time going into the Philadelphia, actually, here's something kind of funny about my experience with the Philadelphia Zoo. I went in there 3 times in my entire life. Once in 2010, the other in 2014, I think it was either 2014 or 2013, and the final time was when I was in 7th grade in late 2017. Every single time I went to the Philadelphia Zoo, it was raining each time, but there's one thing that always popped into my mind whenever I went to the zoo. Considering it was raining, I wanted to do the indoor exhibits, and I was never a fan of seeing as we see a big sideways snap for Carrie Anderson, heading through turn number 5. That is very well held from the driver of the number 78 car. Going to lose out on at least 1 spot, make that 2 spots with Chuck Labano and Seth Spolman joining Joshua Justice and the 3 cars that overtook Anderson as she went sideways, heading through turn number 5. We're going to take a look at a replay to see what happened to her. These Audis surprisingly loose. There you can see the sideways snap. I mean, the TCR cars, the rear end is just kind of there to give the car 4 tires, but still, either way, a big sideways snap.
Yeah, I think she did a good job. She did a good job to hold that, but I think it was kind of induced by the car in front, maybe a little slower through turn 5 than she was. I think she had to either lift or maybe get on the brakes a little bit, and that just really upset the balance of the car. But like I said, great job just to catch that and just keep it out of the wall.
And we're going to take a look at another replay of this moment with Carrie Anderson in the number 78 car. I think Tyler Heron right in front of her kind of checked up a little bit more than she probably had in mind hang off through turn number 5. That could be part of the reason why she got sideways. That happens a lot, at least from my experience. That'll be a very good reason why I'm usually behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel. That happens to me a lot when a driver in front of me is a little bit slower into the corner than I probably had in mind. Have to slow down and check up a little bit too much, and in the process of that, the rear end just really has no time to try and respond to it. I was like, nope, I'm still going straight, screw you, and whoop, around you go. Well held, though, from Carrie Anderson regardless, because that was a very well-held slide. As I think there's also been a moment involving Edgar Sancinelli running down to 14th as it stands at the moment. That happened earlier on in the race, however, thanks to some technical issues we won't be able to take a look at, but you can see a little bit of damage on the back end of that race car. The rear wing just worked up a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of damage on the left rear. You can take that broken wing and keep driving around the track, though. It's not going to slow him down too much. Maybe alter the balance of the car slightly, but that should be no problem. He'll handle that just fine. And I will say this is my favorite thing about my favorite factoid about Philadelphia. It will bring it up since the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Is during an Eagles game one time they booed Santa Claus. That should tell you everything you need to know about Philadelphia.
I thought it was bad when we just absolutely pattered the Minnesota Vikings fans with beer cans back in the day. Oh boy. Anyways, getting back onto the subject of the racing action we've got going on at the present moment. Following Will Pierre running in P2, he's keeping tabs with Jake Sneddon at the front end of this field, and as these drivers careen their way off through the corkscrew, I'm going to share the story that I was going to share about the zoo. So considering every single time I went there it rained, I always look towards the indoor activities in the Philadelphia Zoo. I never wanted to go into the bugs exhibit because they never really had the bugs on full display, which it's fine and all, but as someone who's rather scared of insects, that was never good. It's like, oh, let's look at this. It's a spider that they got from Australia that will like cause your entire body to rot in the span of 5 minutes whenever it bites you. Let's take a look at. Looking into the window, it's not there. Where is it? Let's run and get out of here before it comes back to bite us. So I could never really do that. So I used to go to the bird exhibit at the Philadelphia Zoo, which was such a brilliant experience because it very much so reminded me of the school bus trip I had to get to the Philadelphia Zoo when I last went there as a 7th grader. You get into the bird exhibit and all the birds started screaming at the top of their lungs. So that's always a fun experience, just going in there and hearing a bunch of birds from the tropics screeching like a bunch of angry car alarms. So gotta love the Philadelphia Zoo. That and the one time that I think I went in there for the second time, and there's one exhibit where it was just like 5 turkeys in a fenced off area. And actually there's a story a couple of years ago from the Philadelphia Zoo, which was really sad to hear. It was one exhibit that I know one of my friends was always emotionally invested in. There was some construction going on around the Philadelphia Zoo, and one of the diggers carrying a bunch of dirt tipped over into the snake enclosure, which was just absolutely terrible. It filled the snake pit in, which was such a shame because the snakes after that didn't even have a pit to hiss in. I apologize. That was awful. No.
Terrible.
This broadcast has broken me already. Let's get back to the racing action. And I echo the comment from Josh a couple of moments ago. Off the rails. It's a broadcast with me in it. That tends to happen from time to time. Looking at the drivers out the front of the field, they're very much so on rails as they continue to set some very good lap times and trying to give more pressure to Jake Sneddon, who has not been able to run away with this.
No, absolutely not. You got 3 cars a second and a half apart. Sneddon leading, Will Pierre just right there, just filling up his mirror, as it has been that way since the beginning of the race. Miles Crab running in 3rd in that Mad Sim Racing liveried Honda Civic Type R. So far, a really good battle. We were looking earlier. There's a nice battle there. Seth Bowman just took over 9th place from Heron. Lobano just behind them, Bromer just behind them. So a nice little 4-car battle heating up there around P9 and 10. And then Ian Anderson and Kyle Robertson battling for 4th and 5th. They're a half second apart. So still really, really tight battles all over the racetrack.
Snakes don't even have a pit to hiss in. How I've made a career out of this broadcasting stuff will continue to stun me until the day I die. Looking at Ian Anderson, though, running in the 4th position as it stands at the moment, and a very good-looking sim motion car. Those paint schemes just looking slick. I don't know, maybe I may be a little bit biased because I'm a fan of blue, but we got some blue paint schemes up and down the grid. But those sim motion cars, outside of the rather disgusting yellow Honda Michelin Pilot Series banner, those are pretty snazzy looking paint schemes.
Yeah, I do like that kind of that grayish blue, really matte finished. Really nice looking livery. Sim Motion's done a good job with that. The blue, black, and white is, obviously wanting to put their colors to the car, and I think it looks very, very sharp indeed.
Yeah, very snazzy looking paint scheme to invoke a little bit of 1980s radio terminology, but he's currently running in 4th as it stands at the moment. Got a battle between himself and Kyle Robertson. Those 2 cars covered by about a half a second, heading their way off through the mid-sector of this race course right now. That's turn number 6 that we just saw Anderson and Robertson go through a few moments ago. We'll note the fact that this field is spread out a teeny tiny bit. You got the front 3 covered by about 2 seconds. Miles Crab dropping back a teeny tiny bit. You go back to these 2, Ian Anderson and Kyle Robertson, running a little bit farther back, and then you have to go back about 7 seconds to find Ryan Campbell running in P6. So a little bit spread out in certain chunks of the field, but there's other chunks of the field that are rather close together. This pack involving Seth Spolman, Tyler Heron, Nolan Bromer, and Chuck Labano, certainly good proof of that, as those race cars are covered by a tick over a second and a half.
Yeah, Bromer's already, he made the pass around Lobano to take over 11th position. That Taco Bell car is racing really hard, trying to make a run to the front without stepping on anybody's taglines there. As he's behind another one of the Sim Motion liveried Hondas of Tyler Heron. Different design, but still very sharp looking livery as well.
We're getting some donations in from the Peanut Gallery. Josh noting that his favorite paint scheme in this field is Seth Spolman's liver that we're seeing right now on that number 42 Hyundai. Sorry, that was a little bit mean calling Josh the Peanut Gallery. We love Josh in the virtual production hall. They're always doing a good job. And definitely not amending that statement because he is technically my boss, our boss here at SMB, and I will leave it at that. Spolman currently running in 9th as it stands currently, about 5-ish seconds between himself and Josh Justice, running a little bit farther up the road in PA. Justice in a field all of his own as it stands at the present moment. No Man's Land is where he's running in the 8th spot as it stands currently. He's a hard charger though, up 6 spots from where he started in this race, so well done to Justice in that number 99 car. Even though he's probably feeling a little bit lonely at this point, he's built up enough of a cushion around the drivers around him whereby he's probably checking his email at this point.
Maybe so. Yeah, he was in a battle earlier with Heron, and once he got clear of that group, he just kind of checked out, and he's continuing to plow forward. It's going to be a tough ask to try and get up to Vos, but he's got plenty of time. We still got another half of the race to go.
Yeah, we still have not reached the halfway mark of this TCR race. However, we are certainly getting close to it, about a minute until we hit the 20-minute mark, and then we're going to have 20 to go. Hey, dividing a 40-minute long race in half. Aren't I clever? Chuck Labano, who we're riding on board with right now, finds himself in 12th. Gonna have a battle between himself and Tyler Heron soon, but no! Look at that sideways! He keeps on to it, though. Holy cow, that was a sketchy moment for both of those drivers. Heron went into the corner probably about 15 miles an hour too quickly. Chuck Labano, meanwhile, the rear end of that race car decided to go on strike. Gary Anderson running right behind had that same fate earlier on, but look at that, Labano and Heron side by side through turn number 4, and Labano gonna get that move done, even though his rear tires are probably very angry with him. That number 11 car not able to withstand that challenge from Labano for very long.
No, absolutely not. It was a great move, and I think not really sure that maybe Heron got caught off guard a little bit with that move from Labano, but obviously great job to catch that car. And that is the one thing I learned very early in these TCRs, that if you ever get in a half spin situation like that, just floor it and the car will correct itself. It is one of the easier ones to get out of a spin as opposed to the TCR spins the traction control spins you would get in a GT3 car, where you just there's nothing you can do. It's just going to spin around, and when it stops, then you can start driving again. This one, just put your foot down, you can straighten it back out pretty easy.
I was going to mention exactly that, Charles. Those GT3 traction control spins where it's like you could do whatever you want with the steering wheel, whatever you want with the gears, whatever you want with the throttle, whatever you want with the brakes, and whatever you want with the clutch. Doesn't matter. You're still going to end up facing the wrong way. Those spins always just absolutely drive me bonkers whenever I'm driving a GT3 race car. Looking at Kerry Anderson running the rally line coming out of the final corner of turn number 11. The final corner around here, a rather confusing one. It's too tight to be just a normal corner, yet at the same time it's too open to be a hairpin. It's a rather peculiar way for this lap to be brought to a close.
It is a little strange. I would have to agree with that. And Kerry just a little too deep in there and just carried the car out into the dirt a little bit. But there are worse ways to take that corner. If you force the issue, get on the throttle, and the next thing you know, you're nosed into the pit wall. So very smart on Kerry's part. Just run it out, collect it up, get it going back in the right direction, continue on in the race. And she's just a little bit behind this group. She hasn't really lost touch with them yet. She'll have the opportunity to make up some of that time.
I gotta say, thinking of final corners around racetracks as well, there are certainly worse final corners out there in the world. There are far worse final corners in the world out there. I will note, if it ever gets scanned by iRacing, which I believe would be a rather interesting experience just based off the fact that Google Maps isn't even allowed to share proper, accurate information. But if iRacing ever gets the opportunity to scan the Shanghai International Circuit out there in China, that final corner genuinely, things I would rather do than drive around that corner for an extended period of time include presenting next week's broadcast of the Ray Esports Club Racing League while being locked in a phone booth with a rabid hyena. So that really speaks volumes about my personal stance on that final corner. Oh, as we see some side-by-side racing, maybe going to flare up between Jake Sneddon and Will Pierre. Nearly trying to bump and run was Pierre to the back of Sneddon. These two have been very fast all throughout this season. Jake Sneddon, of course, grabbing 3 wins up to this point, and he's won at a wide variety of racetracks as well. Road Atlanta, Bathurst, and Daytona being the ones that he's won races at thus far, and really looking through those tracks. Not a lot of comparisons to make between those and this.
No. I think you could probably take the elevation from Bathurst and kind of compare it to this track a bit. Obviously, there's no room for errors at Bathurst. If you ever try to drive a lap there, you'll know what I'm talking about. Is that's probably I've got bad tracks that I'm just not comfortable with. That's probably the worst one. It's too tight for an old guy like me to keep it on the track all the way around there for an hour, much less for 12. So as we see the battle here heating up, Will Pierre out on the inside.
Ooh, and there you go. Pierre trying to go side by side off through turn number 6. However, going side by side through there, that is never going to work. You'd be better off trying to pick up antimatter with chopsticks. I think Will Pierre realized that and promptly backed out of it, trying to go side by side with himself and Sneddon through that corner. Jake Sneddon and Will Pierre, some very quick drivers in these TCR race cars, and certainly proving that right now. However, with them contemplating a battle, it's actually brought Miles Crabbe back into the fold. We saw Miles Crabbe about 2.5 seconds back behind these racers not terribly long ago as they nearly come to blows heading through turn number 11. Crabbe has been brought back into this. He's now about 1.25 seconds, around that 1.4 second barrier between himself and Jake Sneddon. And in terms of pace, look at that as those two have been going side by side. Will Pierre, Miles Crabbe, my apologies, has been able to be a lot quicker than Will Pierre for sure, about 0.3 seconds separating those two in terms of pace, and Jake Sneddon wasn't terribly quicker than Pierre, so that's really encouraging if you are Miles Crabbe. Maybe looking for a little bit of a comeuppance after that Mazda race earlier on. I think he had a really good shot to win it early on, but just didn't really materialize for him at the end of that race. Here, though, in the final 15 minutes, which we are now officially into, Crabbe maybe deciding to kick on the wick a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Crabbe wants to see. Is he wants to see those two guys up front fighting. Because obviously you can't go through the corner as quickly when you're side by side with a race car as you can by yourself. So, those guys will slow each other down as they're trying to battle cleanly through some of these corners. So that'll be music to the ears of Miles Crabbe to let those guys battle up front, and he can just come in there and join in. And I will also say Ian Anderson was only 1/10 off Crabbe's last lap. So he'll have an opportunity to make some gains as well.
And these drivers looking to find any way in the book to get some gains on their competition. Gains referring to advantages around the racetrack, not the laundry detergent company. However, if Gain would like to throw some money our way here at SMB, I don't think any of us would be opposed to that.
No.
That was shameful. I apologize there. We already got a fantastic sponsor in the form of SimMotion, though. So
absolutely.
we love SimMotion. SimMotion's absolutely fantastic. We've been able to hear from some of these drivers as well about SimMotion and how some of their sim rigs and some of the stuff that they have on their sim rigs has been bought from SimMotion. And next time I'm looking to try and put a sim rig together, I may end up having a look at SimMotion myself. My current sim rig, I've had that together since 2018. It's been with me through a lot, and it is hanging on by a thread. That thing is about as much of a hoopty-rod as a SEPTA bus here in the city of Philadelphia. So I guess by that logic, I can match transport people in my sim rig.
There you go. Absolutely. As we're on board here with Edgar Sancinelli, right on the back of Kerry Anderson, and that's a nice little battle. They've passed Tyler Heron, who's just fallen down the order. I'm not sure what the problem, if he's just having issues maybe struggling a little bit with the car setup, or just struggling with the track. This is not the easiest track to wrap your head around, especially, as I said, these front-wheel drive cars. Every track is difficult in these cars, at least for me. So now we'll see Chuck Labano here, who was in a battle with Seth Spolman and Kerry Anderson and Nolan Bromer, but that battle has kind of stretched out a little bit, so now Chuck's kind of running by himself.
Yeah, Labano at this time probably singing to him. Actually, I was going to sing One Is the Loneliest Number, but I do not want to do that. I'll actually share, at this point, I will share a comment that I made a couple of days ago on the Make-A-Wish Drive for Wishes charity iRacing event that I was part of the broadcast for. I had mentioned that they're maybe going to make us sing on the air, and I'd said that I tried practice singing that morning and ended up cracking the mirror in my bathroom. So that is good enough reason for me to not sing here on this broadcast tonight. However, some of these drivers at the front of the field, their gearboxes and their engines are certainly singing, and they're feeling good about their chances. Miles Crab running in third as it stands at the moment. They got some lap traffic to deal with, though. This front three pack has been vacuum sealed together as of late, just based off the pace differential. It's about 0.2 of a second pace-wise between Jake Sten and Will Pierre last time by, and a further 0.2 between Pierre and Crab. These drivers certainly giving us a really close battle to talk about right towards the end of this race. The traffic they're having to deal with as well, certainly not helping these drivers. That is real rough heading through that final corner. Thankfully, they all deal with it rather smoothly. However, that could have been close to tears.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did stretch them out just a little bit, but it's still only 1 second from first to third. So they managed to get through relatively unscathed there, lapping that car. And so now they're going to keep battling. We've got about 10.5 minutes left in the race. And so now Miles Crab is well and truly back in the lead battle. So we'll see who's going to come out on top here. It's going to be interesting. At some point, we're going to start getting a little more aggressive with these cars, and they can take a little bit of a beating and banging while they're battling on the track. So would not surprise me to see some car contacts starting to come about here in the last 10 minutes of the race.
Yeah, that's the thing when it comes to TCR racing. Touring car racing, as everyone knows, it kind of has its basis in beating and banging and roughing each other up. In terms of physical racing, it's about as physical as you can get in the road course sphere outside of stock cars. So TCR racing, always the kind of racing where you see some drivers beat and bang and rough each other up, break the elbows out, and certainly the manufacturers doing a very good job crafting these cars as silly putty to make sure they can bounce off each other and not have any major damage on them. But you can see Jake Sten still wheeling that number 5 Hyundai in front of the 2 Hondas that are hounding him at this point in time. 9.5 minutes left on the clock, so probably about 7-ish laps left for these drivers. We'll note the fact that in races past, the TCRs have usually been a lot quicker than the Mazdas earlier on. Not really the case here at Laguna Seca, as I think we just saw Joaquin Effinger come into the pits. He's running down in 18th as it stands at the present moment. Kyle Robertson trying to get some lap traffic displaced, heading down that start-finish straightaway off into turn number 2. But the pace differential between these TCR race cars compared to the Mazdas earlier on, a little bit lower than we've seen in races past here, Charles.
Yeah, it's a pretty tight, it's a bit tighter gap, and it's just the nature of the track. My guess is, I think, if I remember correctly, I think GT3s are running in the 122 range, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on skill level, obviously. So yeah, when you get into a more technical track, the gaps between the car classes are a little more constricted. My guess would be if we were doing the multi-class race between, we see Aaron Bray taking his way onto the pit through Grosjean Curve and around into the pit lane. My guess would be if we were watching a GT4 TCR multi-class race that we would see in like the Michelin Pilot Challenge, they would be all over the top of each other. It would be amazing to watch.
I got that reference there, Charles, and I will actually share part of the reason why I know that. So I don't really talk about it too much on these broadcasts that I do, because I remember when I got into this, I was like, I'm not going to use my broadcasting as a form of self-promotion. But well before I got into this broadcasting stuff, I used to and still occasionally do make videos talking about motorsports history stuff. And one of the videos was talking about Ed Jones during the 2021 IndyCar season and how he had a season, to put it lightly. I made a whole video about it. I will not say how you can find that video, but if you look up Ed Jones's terrible 2021 IndyCar season, you'll probably be able to find it. And a pretty good summary of that season was the fact he was riding on board in a, I guess it was an Acura with Roman Grosjean here back in 2021, and those two ended up crashing the Acura on pit entry at this racetrack. So I like the name Grosjean Curves. I think that's rather fitting for one of the goofiest pit entry corners in all of major motorsports.
It is pretty strange as we're back on board here with Jake Sneddon still in the lead. Gap's extended now. He's about 0.6 of a second over Will Pierre. Miles Crab's dropped off, had a little bit of an issue somewhere in that last lap. Only a 33.7 as opposed to the Will Pierre's 32.9 and Sneddon's 32.1. So a little bit of an issue. I'm not sure where that came up. I didn't see it as we were watching the broadcast. So not sure, but he's definitely off the pace. He still has the fastest lap of the race with a 131.248 until now. And now Will Pierre, 131.173, takes the fastest lap of the overall. And now that gap's back down to 0.3 of a second. So he's going to be back all over the back of Sneddon for the remainder of the race, it appears.
And the yin and yang, the yo-yo effect in terms of pace for these drivers in the front three is still continuing on. We saw earlier on the fact that Jake Sneddon was dropping back a little bit, falling into the crutches of Will Pierre, who was also simultaneously falling into the crutches of Miles Crab. The gap between Pierre and Crab has ballooned as of the past couple of laps, and I will note the fact that last time by, Miles Crab wasn't too slow compared to Jake Sneddon. However, the pace between himself and Will Pierre was about 0.4 of a second differential, with Pierre setting his fastest lap of the race and the fastest lap of the race at this point in time last time by. So I think Will Pierre certainly kicking on the hyperjets, as you can see the rally lines that those drivers were using hang through the corkscrew a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, if that wasn't contact, I'm not sure what was. I don't think you could have put a piece of paper between those two cars. That's how close it was coming through the corkscrew there as they're coming down that 5-story drop. Basically nothing between them.
Yeah, nothing between those two drivers at all. And in that drama, Miles Crab has actually been able to close up that gap. You can see last time by a 131.2, which is his personal best lap of the race right now, and a decent chunk quicker than Will Pierre. It was 0.6 of a second in terms of pace between Crab and Pierre last time by, and it was about 0.4 of a second between Crab and Sneddon. So really speaks volumes about the constant yin and yang, up and down yo-yoing in terms of these drivers' gaps. Crab looking to close up and strike while the iron is still hot. We saw it earlier on tonight with the action from the Mazda Mania race earlier on. Crab tried closing up that gap, it just didn't really work out for him towards the end of this race. However, in the TCRs now, unlike that Mazda race earlier on, got an extra 10 minutes, and let's see which one of these drivers have been able to manage their stuff a little bit better. We also got some lap traffic a little bit farther up the road as well, which may play a big role.
Yeah, that's I think Nemo Tagalag just in front of them. They managed to get through the corkscrew in front of them, but they're going to be coming up on him in a hurry right at that final corner. So we'll see how they're gonna do in the navigation around. Looks like he is just going to stay right in the racing line, and we see Will Pierre dart to the inside, trying to take advantage of that slow down by Sneddon, and they're going to be side by side coming up the hill.
Yeah, and here we go. This is a fight that we've been looking forward to. That lap traffic encounter, that's going to play a big role in this as well. Sneddon going to be on the front of the field, but look at that. Will Pierre go for the dive, heading into the Andretti hairpin. It's going to be a drag race between these two, coming out of the second corner into turn number 3. Jake Sneddon going to withstand that challenge for now, but Will Pierre still close. He's going to try and get the move done on the exit of turn 3. Got out all to the inside line through 4. Look at this. This this is close. Look at Miles Crab there getting involved in this fight as well. They're still going to be side by side. Miles Crab maybe sizing up the opportunity to sneak by. Look at that contact being made. Pierre sawing at the wheel to keep that number 17 Honda on the racetrack. That's a shot that Crab needs. He gets a move done to slip his way up into second as Pierre begins to struggle. Look at Ian Anderson. If these three drivers come to blows and go off the track in a cloud of dust and steam, he'll be the one to pick up the pieces. Let's see if these drivers will be able to negotiate each other clean. That lap traffic encounter as they started this 25th lap was about as ill-timed as you could possibly have it. Imagine being that lap car. You're just running your own race, and all of a sudden the top three drivers, who've been the top three drivers really ever since the drop of the green flag, just hove into view in that rear view mirror and give you one heck of a scare coming towards the end of this race. And speaking of, we're coming up to the end of it soon. Jake Sneddon on that start finish straightaway. It's going to be the second to last time, very close between taking the white or taking the two to go, but he's not taking the white. He took the two to go there, so 2 more laps of racing action from this TCR race. Jake Sneddon still at the front. However, Miles Crab going to be taking advantage of that opportunity and taking advantage of a still very likely shudder Sneddon after that drama 1 lap ago.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great battle. More a little bit of contact, but nothing really major. But you can see the 3 cars, and Crab did a good job. Going to get a replay here. We're on board there with Will Pierre as he makes that dive to the inside in the final corner. Just takes it in, and Sneddon takes it wide. They come up the hill side by side. Still have the lap car in front. Coming down, the lap car gets in the way of the inside line. So Sneddon has to fall back. And just, ever so close. Ever so close. And there's no contact there.
That was such a dive from Will Pierre heading down into that Andretti hairpin, and he was still fighting tooth and nail. Look at them side by side through turn number 4. Pierre getting a bad exit there. You can see Sneddon didn't get a good exit either. He did a little bit of lawn mowing coming out of turn number 4. Look at that, Miles Crab was in view as well. But here we go onto that start finish straightaway for the last time with 5 seconds left on the clock. The white flag in the air. Only 1 more lap of racing action from this TCR race here this evening. It's Jake Sneddon grabbing the white. Will he be able to grab the white and the black in the form of the checkered in about 10 corners time? Jake Sneddon leading them into turn number 3 for the last time in this race. Will Pierre, though, and Miles Crab, they're about 0.3 of a second back. They are so close. Crab 0.3 of a second back of Sneddon. Pierre 0.3 of a second back of Crab. This race is still so close at the front of this field. And think of how we're seeing this race develop. Over 40 minutes on the clock, and the front 3 drivers in this race are still covered by less than a second. Only in sports car racing and touring car racing like this will you see a series in a field so closely packed together. It's like a bunch of sardines in a can, but are these drivers going to be salty is the real question. Heading down into the corkscrew. Look at that, bumping for all 3 of them. They were linked together. Will Pierre, I think he just got abducted by a UFO. Miles Crab, though, trying to apply the pressure to Jake Sneddon. Here we go, heading into turn number 10 for the final time in this race. Miles Crab, he wants to try and grab a win. He was so close in that Mazda race earlier on, but it's deja vu. He's going to be P2 heading through the final corner, but this time it's going to be Jake Sneddon leading them, coming onto the start-finish straight away for the final time. And despite the fact he was certainly down at points in time, he was never out of it, and he grabs the checkered flag to be your winner in this race. Ian Anderson, as a result of that drama involving Will Pierre, he ends up in 3rd. Anderson go round out your podium, ends up on the final step as Pierre steps onto that UFO.
Wow, that was not, unfortunately, wasn't a UFO. There's a 20x incident limit for the race, and that 4x contact sent him over the limit, so that's a disqualification on the last lap of the race. What a way! that's there are worse ways to lose, but that's one of the worst ones for sure. As we see Josh Justice coming across the finish line to finish 7th. Seth Spolman will come around the final corner, and he'll pick up P8. but just unfortunate for Will Pierre. Great race, great battle up at the front between himself, Snedden, and Crab, and just very unfortunate. That's the way that his race ends tonight.
I will note as well, he wasn't the only one, as Nolan Bromer also picked up a disqualification right towards the end of that race. So the incident points coming back to bite some of these drivers on the hind end, 11 corners in all, unforgiving runoff area. And in these TCRs where you've got that front wheel drive understeer, seems like those off-track encounters racked up after a while, and for some drivers it's going to end in a slap on the wrist from race control. I will note as well the fact that looking through now, iRacing usually does a rather good job in terms of marking the drivers with a disqualification flag on them, and didn't see that next to him, but I believe it was because he Alt F4'd out of the session as soon as that disqualification was processed. So the Alt F4 key seeming to be some of these drivers' friends at certain points in time. So either way, unfortunate the fact the battle up towards the front ended that way for Will Pierre, but regardless, it was a fantastic night of racing action. At the end of the day, Jake Snedden takes the checkered flag to win his 4th race here for group number 1, and we'll get a chance to have a chat with him and some of the other drivers once we go through the results. Jake Snedden, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago, your winner here tonight. Miles Crab, for the 2nd time this evening, is going to finish in P2. Ian Anderson going to round out your podium in 3rd. We have Kyle Robertson finishing a little bit farther back behind it in 4th. Ryan Campbell rounds out your top 5. Dylan Vose in 6th. Josh Justice in 7th. Seth Spolman ends up in P8. Edgar Sancinelli will finish this race in 9th. And Chuck Labano going to round out your top 10.
Yeah, Kerry Anderson finishes up in 11th. Tyler Herron in 12th. Final car on the lead lap. Will Pierre, obviously, with the disqualification, finishes 13th. Nemo Tagalag 14th. Matt Thompson 15th. Aaron Bray in 16th. Nolan Bromer, as you mentioned, also with a DQ, finishes 17th. Joaquin Effinger finishing 18th. Kenneth Stepp finishing 19th. Both Joaquin and Ken 8 laps down. Mike Key, early drama, finishes 20th. And Scott Russell did not take the start and will be classified as 21st on the final results.
So those are your results at the end of this race. We got a little bit of time left for some interviews, so I'm going to cut the fluff and bring in our winner of Jake Snedden, taking his 4th checkered flag of the season. Jake Snedden, your winner here at Laguna Seca. Welcome into the commentary booth, Jake, and you want to talk us through what looked like a really pressure-packed race here at California.
I had no practice and the completely wrong setup, and I was really just holding everybody up behind me. So I was just playing respectful hardball.
I mean, it still worked out to be a pretty good strategy for you, even without that well-tuned setup. So I want to ask you about that defensive drive that you had to put in around this track, and ask you about the quirks and features of having to do a defensive drive at a track like this.
So I don't mind defending. It's really fun, especially when it's with friends. Like Will was really hunting me down that race, and it was getting really hard towards the end there because that low downforce, just having no downforce, I was really just cooking my tires, and the tires were it was really just managing tires and just really trying to be respectful as possible in terms of keeping Will behind me.
I think from our perspective in the commentary booth, the battling between you and him was clean and certainly exciting as well, especially with that dive from Will heading into turn number 2 right towards the end of this race. But it's your 4th win in the TCRs here for group number 1, so I'm sure you're probably looking forward to the next race of the championship at Sebring in about a month's time. So what are your thoughts heading down to that track?
So Sebring's going to be pretty interesting. I feel like it'll lend a lot of opportunity to actually get some passing done in the TCR, because I think most of the opportunities here, except for I think we did Road Atlanta, haven't really been very stretched out and really any room for drafting or anything, because the draft on TCRs is really strong. just like there's really no place to take advantage of it at Laguna Seca, for example. So Sebring is really nice, big and open, very flat, simple in theory, but technical course. So I think it'll be really fun.
And I absolutely adore Sebring myself, so I am going to be very happy to see the racing action there for the second to last round of this championship in about 3 weeks' time, and I'm sure you're going to be a force to contend with in that race as well. Jake Sned, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth, but before we let you go and celebrate, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Give a shout out to Will in that race for keeping me honest and also putting up with my defensive shenanigans. Obviously my friends and family, my boss, everybody that continues to support me and, be a church friend of mine, of course.
There you go, man. I can say I absolutely respect thanking the boss there, because that's always always good. It's like back in the day of like putting an apple on the teacher's desk. So there. There you go on that, Jake.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth, and congratulations on the win here at Laguna Seca.
Thank you. Take care.
And that right there was Jake Snedden, your winner here in California. And Charles, who do you want to have a chat with?
Well, let's bring in our second place finisher in both races tonight, Miles Crabb. Miles, congratulations and condolences. P2 both races tonight. So very, very close, but you ran hard and you were up front for the majority of both races. So talk about it from your perspective.
I joined in about halfway through that sentence because Discord was being stupid. It was the tale of two very different second places tonight. In the Miata race, I was running as hard as I could the entire time and just doing all I could to keep up with Lincoln. That's who was in front of me. It's been 40 minutes. I couldn't remember who was racing. And this was the first third I pushed, thinking that was the right thing to do, and kept making mistakes, and I wasn't slow, but I wasn't making inroads on Will and Jake. And then I kind of just backed everything off 10 feet in every brake zone and started experimenting with which gear to be in and which corner, and found something and kind of came roaring back. And I knew I needed as many shots at Jake as I could get, so I was trying to get past Will, and he defended and did a good job of it, and I dropped a little too much off on the inside of the carousel one lap and had to give up a couple seconds. So eventually got past Will. I could not tell you how that happened right now to save my life. I don't remember it. And just tried to set Jake up. And I thought I had a run with 2 to go and I would have taken it. But he broke really deep into, I think it was Rainy Curve. And I couldn't do anything with it. And then on the last lap, I was trying to just I had a little bit better corner speed, and I was just trying to get that run, and he was putting it just perfectly in the middle of the road. And then going into the carousel, I decided to kind of lift off and get a really good exit. And right when I glanced in the mirror, because I knew Will was still there, when I was gonna just start rolling off into trail brake, and he was coming in full speed, so I kind of just held it straight and waited, braced for impact, and it ended up not being that hard of a hit, and then I promptly dropped a wheel and got him disqualified. So sorry, I didn't mean to drop the wheel on the inside and give Will the extra 1x, but after that I was trying to get a run into the last corner, and it was just a replay of the Miata race. I needed Jake to make a mistake on the last corner, and he held it nice and steady, and I couldn't do anything with it.
But still, all in all, a good night. Two second places. Next race for the TCRs is at Sebring in a month's time. So how do you feel about that?
I like the track. I still hate these cars. I'm more excited for MX-5 at Sebring.
There you
go. Please give me big horsepower and rear-wheel drive and small tires. That's just You can't get on throttle mid corner. You understeer off the track. It makes no sense to me. It's just that's backwards.
Yeah. Dude, I completely, yeah, I'm in that boat also. I avoid these cars like the plague. So Miles, congratulations. We'll let you thank anybody you want to thank, give some shout outs before we let you go for tonight.
Hi Mom. Hi Jessica. I tried to lay the bumper into him and I couldn't get to him. So I'm listening to your advice. I just can't do it. And I broke out the Bucky's paint scheme in the MX-5. I've got a couple more of those. Almost did Hello Kitty for this one, but I backed out of it. I couldn't quite make myself press the button. But thank y'all for putting this on. And thank you, Stevie. Unfortunately, he has to work all these days, so he can't actually have fun. He just gets to set up the league. So thank y'all for broadcasting.
All right, Miles, congratulations. We'll see you next time.
Later.
And that right there was Miles Crab. I was going to mention that Bucky's livery during that Mazda race. I really need to take a trip to a Bucky's at some point. We've just got Wawa up here in the Philadelphia area, which is great and all, but I feel like Bucky's is just this like magical land of mystery to me as a New Englander. So I think actually is Philadelphia considered part of New England? I don't believe it is. As a Northeasterner, Bucky's just seems like a magical place of wonder and glee. So I may need to excuse myself to a trip to a Bucky's at some point. It would be like my own version of Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, except probably nowhere near as funny as that movie ended up being. But that's neither here nor there. Charles, another great night of racing action, but Sebring in 1 week's time. 1 race time. Sorry, it's in 3 weeks' time. In 1 race's time, Sebring is going to be a real fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Sebring as a track, both in the sim and in person. It's a great place to watch racing, and so I'm going to enjoy it and commiserate with Miles as he tries to put a TCR around that track. But it'll be fun nonetheless. And that Mazda race is, as always, sure to be a spectacle.
That's just one part of the brilliant racing action that we've got every single week here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Because haven't we known, folks, that even with this broadcast, the racing action does not end. Going on right now, we've got the broadcast of the Sim Racers Group F4 Championship. They, I believe, unless I am very much mistaken, are presently running at Brands Hatch, which is a really wonderful racetrack in those cars. So that's some pretty good racing action going on at the present moment. But we've also got some more action going on here on SMB outside of the stuff on Wednesdays. On Tuesday nights, you can catch the action from the American Muscle Series, some old-fashioned Mustang racing action. You can catch Josh on the cams for that, and our Weekend Warriors pal, Mr. Randall McGrew, calling those races every single Tuesday at 9:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's how it looks on Tuesdays. I just ran through how things look on Wednesdays here on SMB. There we go. We got the Ray Esports Club Racing League Wednesdays on 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the SRG Series at 9:45. So that's how it's looking on Wednesdays. But come time for the weekends, we've got a lot of stuff going on here at SMB. Apply a little bit of WD-40. Oh, we got a small little technical issue. Oh, it was going so well. But anyways, folks, we still got some great action on Saturdays. We got the Formula V Weekend Warriors. That series is absolutely phenomenal. And the day after, on Sundays, we've got the awesome racing action from the Formula Ford and Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. But coming up yet again on Sundays here on SMB, the return of XSLR. We got 4 weeks of dirt oval racing action to look forward to kick this season off. That's coming up this Sunday here on SMB at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's all the stuff coming up here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Gives you more reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But as for tonight's action for the Ray Esports Club Racing League, round number 5 for group number 1, I think that will just about do it. And so for myself, Ron Maunz, Charles Michelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.